In the year 2075, humanity had already made leaps and bounds in technology, but there was one thing that always intrigued scientists: the question of communication with animals. It was something that had been attempted countless times before, but all had failed until now. The discovery began in a small lab in Geneva, where a team of researchers led by Dr. Adrian Wells and his colleague, Dr. Clara Iverson, made an unexpected breakthrough. They had been experimenting with neural links, trying to bridge the gap between human minds and the consciousness of other living creatures. What they found was beyond their wildest imagination. One day, during a routine experiment involving a chimpanzee named Zora, Dr. Iverson noticed something strange on the screen. Zora, the animal she had been working with for months, had a neural pattern that was unlike any other recorded before. It was almost as if Zora were attempting to communicate. Dr. Iverson couldn't believe her eyes. "Adrian, you need to come see this," she called out to Dr. Wells, her voice trembling with excitement. Dr. Wells rushed over to her station and stared at the screen. He couldn't fathom what he was seeing. Zora's neural activity seemed to align perfectly with human cognitive thought patterns, suggesting a possibility of understanding that was never considered before. For weeks, the team fine-tuned their system, building a specialized device to transmit and interpret the signals that Zora was sending out. Finally, after months of effort, the first successful transmission occurred. Zora's eyes widened, and then, for the first time in history, a human heard an animal speak. "I am hungry," the chimpanzee's voice echoed in the lab, not through the air, but directly in their minds. The breakthrough caused a sensation. Words spread across the globe like wildfire. People couldn't believe it. Humans had finally unlocked the ability to talk to animals. At first, the world reacted with excitement. The potential for understanding animals, who had previously been so mysterious, was immense. But not everyone was thrilled about the idea. Some feared that humans would use this newfound power irresponsibly, treating animals not as equals but as mere tools for their own benefit. Others questioned whether humans should even have this ability, worrying that it would lead to unintended consequences. The team, however, continued their work, refining the technology and expanding it to more species. Soon they were able to communicate with dolphins, elephants, and even house pets. As humanity began to understand the minds of animals, something remarkable happened, something that no one had anticipated. Animals began to speak out, not just about hunger or pain, but about their thoughts, experiences, and emotions. Zora, the chimpanzee, expressed a longing for a life outside the confines of the lab. Dolphins shared their joy of swimming in the ocean, and elephants spoke about their deep sense of family and community. For the first time in history, animals weren't just objects of study. They were beings with their own thoughts and desires. The world began to change. People began to advocate for animal rights with more fervor. Laws were passed to protect the welfare of animals, and humans who had once considered animals inferior began to see them as equals. The public outcry for better treatment of animals grew louder, and governments around the world responded. Zoos were restructured into wildlife sanctuaries, and animal experimentation was heavily restricted. But there was something even more powerful that emerged from this breakthrough: an undeniable truth. Humans were not alone. It was during an expedition in the Amazon rainforest that the full extent of humanity's new power was revealed. Dr. Wells and Dr. Iverson had been working with a group of researchers and native tribes to study the local wildlife when they encountered something that would forever change the course of history. Deep within the jungle, they stumbled upon a tribe of sentient beings, humans in every sense of the word, but with a deep, unspoken bond with the animals around them. The tribe's leader, an elderly woman named Maka, welcomed them with open arms. She spoke of an ancient connection between humans and animals that had been lost for centuries, a connection that the tribe had kept alive through rituals and teachings. Maka explained that her people had always been able to communicate with animals, but it was a gift passed down through generations. Over time, the outside world had forgotten, and the bond had weakened. However, with the recent advancements in technology, humanity was rediscovering what had once been commonplace. "We are not the only species capable of deep thought," Maka said, her eyes filled with wisdom. You have awakened something within us all. As Dr. Wells and Dr. Iverson listened to Maka's words, they realized the enormity of their discovery. Humanity had been given the gift of communication with animals, but it was more than just an intellectual breakthrough. It was a spiritual awakening. They had opened the door to a new era where all life forms could communicate and understand one another. Back in the cities, people began to embrace this new reality. Children who once feared wolves and lions now listened to them with awe, knowing that they could communicate. Farmers began working in harmony with their livestock, understanding their needs and desires. Even urban dwellers found joy in speaking with their pets, hearing their thoughts for the first time. The world became a place of unity, not just among humans, but among all creatures. There were no more divisions between species, no more boundaries that kept them apart. And as humanity and animals grew closer, they learned something that had been lost for millennia. The strength of all life is intertwined. But it wasn't just animals that changed. Humans, too, found themselves changing. They began to value the world around them in a deeper way, realizing that they were part of something much larger than themselves. The arrogance that once defined human behavior began to fade, replaced by a newfound humility and respect for all living things. Humanity had unlocked the ability to communicate with animals, but in doing so, they had discovered something even more profound: the power of understanding, the strength of unity, and the beauty of life in all its forms.